Well, Brian, before we do the obligatory AEW section of the program, and it won't take too much time this week, but we have to talk about some AEW related comments that were made by the current biggest babyface in the wrestling world, Cody Rhodes. He has kept whatever the personal reasons were, whatever the instigation was for him to leave AEW and go back to the WWE. He's kept that, locked up behind the wall, hasn't commented, very few illusions. Like he's had it locked up behind a suit of armor. But now recently, a couple of comments he's made, if there was just some way I could think of to describe what it's like when a suit of armor gets not a crack, but maybe a little dent or a ding or a hunk taken out of it.
That's about good. You could stop there.
Yeah, something like that. But he made some comments that give us a little bit more insight, still a little cryptic, but on why he left AEW. Brian, do you have those comments handy with you?
Yeah, I have some audio here. Apparently, this is from the Bill Simmons show. I don't know what the exact name is, on The Ringer. Just a reminder to people.
We put Bill Simmons through the ringer. That's the name of the show.
We told the listeners way back, the fall before he left, that we thought, I said I thought it. I'm not going to speak for you. You can say what you want.
Well, I concurred. I don't recall having a big major argument with you about it.
That wouldn't be surprised if Cody leaves. And people thought we were crazy. People thought we were against the Bucks. This is once again, they're speaking out. They can't say anything positive about AEW. And then Cody left. And
wouldn't you know who won the pony?
We said that there were issues between various parties, groups in AEW. And a lot of that had to do with what was actually the makeup of the show and the way things were being run. Then other people said, no, you guys made that up. There were never problems. Everything was great. And then he just got the WWE opportunity. So there it is. That's the precursor. Let's go to the audio.
And to be honest, hold on. I will say one more thing, regardless of what issues in terms of the view of how the way things ought to be, as they say, there was one guy that had the final say and apparently he didn't say the right things either, just from what I'm reading between these lines, but go ahead.
Yeah, and there's one guy who has the final say who has people sign NDAs, and there is an NDA in place. They've admitted that publicly, I believe. So whatever Cody does say, as I'm sure is something you're aware of from previous conversations here on the show.
Oh, they will NDA you. They will definitely NDA you.
You just have to find ways to actually say whatever it is you're trying to say without getting that phone call. But hold on, let's go to this audio here. Cody Rhodes talking about AEW, leaving AEW on the Ringer's show with Bill Simmons.
There's clearly bad blood, but there's also clearly respect and love. And in the end, the way I kind of see it is, if I felt disrespected ever at WWE, that's one thing. That's a company that was built. Look at this glass. That's the Yankees. That's the flagship of it all. If I ever felt there, I was a number on a sheet maybe. But feeling disrespected at something I built, with my friends and that we built, feeling disrespected there, I wouldn't stand for it. And I think Brandy and I both, I'm so blessed to have her. It was one of those where it was, it. I did way more here than you think. And you're going to find out the moment I'm out the door. I don't believe in like the cold-hearted, backstabby type of revenge. The greatest revenge on earth is success. And I felt like we were sitting on something wonderful, something great, a huge, potentially with what I was doing with the American Nightmare, as a bad guy, as a good guy, as something in between. We're sitting on something magic. And if I'm not going to do it in the house that I literally, with Matt, Nick, and Kenny built, then buddy, I'm going elsewhere.
Well, there it is. That's the most Cody has ever said about the reasons for not being in AEW. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I saw a clip on Twitter that somebody sent of something they had done several years ago, where there is Kenny on the left, there's Cody, and there's Maddie and Nikki. And Kenny is dressed like he normally dresses with his legs hanging out of his jeans and, whatever. And there's Maddie and Nikki in their seersucker outfits. And there's Cody in a suit. And he's groomed and he looks like an executive. And I'm like, how did this guy get dropped into this hotel room in between these three characters? It just, one of these things is not like the other. I never saw how that was ever going to work. And I don't see how their vision for what wrestling is or could be or should be or whatever could ever be anywhere close. So I didn't see how it worked to begin with.
And again, if you remember the shows of that era, Cody never did anything with Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks.
No, it was the separate, the version one of the separate universes before the other
Right.
separate universes came about.
And the other thing is Cody's stuff, that was clearly his stuff. A lot of it stopped working. The Anthony Ogogo feud and the speech about, saving America and stopping racism by having a daughter, or whatever the hell he was trying to say there. That turned a lot of their fans like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And then they kept being things like that. It was the best thing for him, best thing for WWE. I don't know how it would have worked out with Cody and AEW at that point if he had stayed.
Oh, no. He would have missed out on a lot of opportunity. Everybody would have missed out on a lot of opportunity and money. He didn't fit there in that presentation. His story was for the big leagues. His place was to go after the title that his daddy didn't win in the Garden. It needed to be the big presentation. He couldn't do that in a secondary organization filled with pygmies.
But do you also think some of it's the harsh reality that, you and the Bucks and Omega working together on the indies really got a big following going? At the same time that Tony Khan convinced his dad to let him fund this because he had a reasonable path that he could show to profitability if he could just get television rights renewals down the road. So all this is happening at the same time. For Cody to say disrespected, that him and Brandy felt disrespected in a company that they saw that they built, but was actually Tony Khan's company, that means they felt disrespected by Tony Khan. What do you think that is? Because remember, Cody had, was it an option year? Was it a renewal year? Do you remember what it was when he left? It wasn't like his contract was up, goodbye. Tony chose not to renew him, right?
Yeah, that's the way that I remember it. And again, we could go back and look at all the notes and everything, but there was obviously the option for him to stay, but he chose not to.
Do you think that was probably a hard thing to realize that, this really is Tony Khan's company? At the end of the day, that's the wall I'm going to hit?
I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but I would think that equally weighing on his mind was, Jesus Christ, look at what they're doing. And it's turning into somewhat of a mess here, creatively and or with the talent. And let's face it, Cody, he needed people to work with because it wasn't working with what he was doing there, and he needed not only the structure and the presentation and the big company and the story and the whole nine yards, but he needed other people that were over to work with and that were able to get this shit over, and that wasn't Anthony Ogogo.
Going to WWE was clearly the best thing for Cody. If Cody had not gone to WWE, would AEW be that much different than it is today in terms of popularity, in terms of pay-per-view buys and everything else? Would Cody have made that big a difference to them? Obviously, it's the best thing for Cody in WWE, but it was Cody being put into WWE's system that made it all pop. What do you think? Would it really have made a big difference where we are today, 2025, with AEW?
I don't think their business would be doing remarkably different anything either way, positive or negative. I think maybe some of their productions would have looked better. We talked about Cody trying to go around and do things on a producer's basis and to be one of the EVPs and help guys with entrances or lighting or, the flow of the show, whatever. Some of that could have rubbed off and maybe the shows would have looked better or been presented better, but I don't think it would have affected we've said they couldn't get the reanimated corpse of Lou Thez and make an appreciable difference in their business. It is the people who like the idea of that kind of thing and the constant nonstop barrage of indie type of stuff.
And for the record, I don't know if I'm going to concede that I don't think zombie Lou Thez could be a thing that would get some interest. So I'm not going to agree with that assessment.
Well, they might steal a pay-per-view.
Oh, come on.
They might steal a pay-per-view with him, but I don't think for the long haul. Because, he is slow. That's the one thing. You can outrun zombie Lou Thez. So they'd have to reanimate a bunch of other, old shooters from George Tragos's gym.
Strangle Lewis actually looks like he would be a good-looking zombie. Like if you put some makeup on him, kind of looks like he would fit in perfectly as a zombie. In the Tor Johnson sense.
Well, now Tor Johnson, I don't know if you could use him as a zombie. I think he'd have to be the fucking space creature, wouldn't he? See, now we're getting back to some Pfeffer ideas. But yeah, that's that poor Cody. I think that everything's worked out for the best, but I'm sorry that, he had to realize that his friends were a bunch of jackoffs.
Well, his friends are still in business, and
yes, they are.
They are his friends, and
they're still in Chicago.